These are the examples for Geometry B, Credit 3, Lesson 15.1. Lesson 15.1, we're going to be talking about circles and angles within circles and some of those properties. All right, so what we have here, and it's also going to introduce some vocabulary here. For example, our example for problems 1 and 2, so 1 and 2 are very similar. We have a circle, and within that circle, we have an inscribed triangle. Now, what's an inscribed triangle? It means all of the vertices, all of the angles are on the circle. So we have this triangle inscribed, triangle BCD inscribed in the circle. All right, so we want to find the measure of angle D. So remember what this stands for, measure of angle D, and the question mark just means what's the measure of angle D. All right, so how do we do that? So one of our properties is this. So we are told that this arc here is 150 degrees. Just like we can measure an angle, we can measure an arc, because remember, we can measure along a circle because an entire circle is 360 degrees. So in this case, we're given part of the circle. We're told that this arc here is 150 degrees. So how's that going to help us find the measure of angle D? Well, angle D, as we said, this is an inscribed triangle. Angle D, therefore, is an inscribed angle. And one of the rules that we're going to learn right now is that an inscribed angle, or the measure of an inscribed angle, is equal to 1/2 of the arc that it intercepts. So if we extend, we can see clearly that it's intercepting this arc if we extend these sides of the angle. And we can see that it's intercepting this arc, which we know is 150 degrees. So if we're trying to find the measure of angle D, we know the measure of the arc that it intercepts. So the measure of angle D would be 150 degrees, the measure of the arc, and half of that just means divide by 2, which would be 75 degrees. And so the measure of angle D would be 75 degrees. All right, now we can also work that the other way, and we want to find the measure of this arc here. Well, in this case, we do have an inscribed, not an inscribed triangle, but an inscribed angle. This vertex here is on the circle. Let's make it appear that way. There we go. And so if we know the arc, as we did in for our example for 1 and 2, and we want to find the angle is half of the inscribed, the inscribed angle is half of the arc that it intercepts. If we're going the other way, the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. So if you know the angle and you want to find the measure of this arc here, so the measure of arc BC would be 42, not divided by 2, but times 2, which would be 84 degrees. And so the measure of arc BC would be 84 degrees. So again, if you know the arc and you want to find the inscribed angle, divide by 2. But if you know the angle and want to find the arc, then you multiply by 2. So again, just pause and rewind that, and then you'll get that, and that'll make sense. All right, so now, finally, our example for problems 5 and 6. For problems 5 and 6, once again, we have an inscribed triangle BCD, and they want us to find the measure, ultimately, of angle D. And I say ultimately because we can't do that immediately like we did over there on number 1, because we don't know the measure of this arc here. So that's not going to, we can't take the direct approach, so to speak. We're going to have to figure something else out. And we do have some other information here, so that's going to be helpful. Well, let's see. We know one of these angles. And we also know the measure of this arc here, which is the arc that angle B is intercepting. If we extended these sides, in fact, I'm going to get too messy here. I'll just do this with the rulers. If we extend these sides, we can see that angle B intercepts this arc here. And so we can find the measure of angle B if we take 120, divide it by 2, and that gives us 60. You say, well, how does that help us find the measure of angle D? Because that's angle B. Well, now we know 2 of the angles of this triangle. And remember, in any triangle, all 3 angles, the sum of all 3 angles is 180 degrees. So what I can do is let's call this X here. I can say X plus 60 plus 70 equals 180. And now I just simplify and solve here. 60 plus 70 is 130. And now to solve for x, which is the measure of angle D, the opposite, we're focused over here because that's where x is. The opposite of adding 130 is to subtract 130. So the 130s cancel out and x equals 50 degrees. So the measure of angle D is no longer a question mark. We know what it is now, is 50 degrees. All right. So that is it. Those are the examples for, I believe that's it. Yes, that's it. Those are the examples for lesson 15.1, starting to work with circles and inscribed angles and finding the measure of arcs. By the way, just one quick mention. This is the symbol for arc. I don't think we've encountered that recently. So it's that little curve mark. And one quick mention too, don't confuse that with a line segment. So if we had line segment BC, like if we connected these, that's a line segment. That's line segment BC, but when we have the little curve there like that, that means we're talking about the arc. All right, so now that is it for 15.1. Pause and rewind as needed. And until the next video, take care, good luck with the work, and God bless.